What exactly does For Britain represent? I'm sure many of our viewers will know. There may be some who don't. Maybe some because we haven't had elections last year, so it's been a while since we had elections. Possibly some people don't really know what For Britain stand for. So do you want to just let them know what they would get by putting an X beside For Britain, what that means?
Okay, it's about the overriding philosophy of this party, why we're called For Britain, is because that's what we're for. And by Britain, we mean the British people. So if you have, for example, at local level, so you have local councillors who are For Britain, what they will bring is a voice for the actual voting public. When you see elected chambers, local politics, local elected chambers, it's almost like a game of chess. They are playing games with each other. They take the vote for granted, and then they get into the chambers, and then they play games with each other. You can see it here in Hartlepool with it jumping from party to party. It's almost as if the people are peripheral. The interests of the people are peripheral. They look after themselves. They play games by themselves. And within this government machine, no one is standing up saying, what about the people? What about the people who put you here? Let me give you an example. And one example that we're using and we are saying all over the country. There are chief executives, Peter, unelected chief executives in local government all over this country, some of whom are taking home more money every year than the Prime Minister. Yeah. Our own chief exec is taking home over £150,000 a year. And that's just one. You have other managers taking home £130,000, £140,000, £120,000 a year. Meanwhile, they have no money for a youth sector, no money to fix the roads, no money for this, that, and the other. The last chief executive, when she left with over £250,000 in her pocket. Wow. No councillor across the country standing up in the chamber and saying, shame on you all. In my ward, we have broken pavements. We have the youth club has been closed down. The community centre is out. But you lot are taking home over $1 million just for 8 of our management people are taking home over $1 million a year here in Hartlepool. And that's repeated all over. That's what we bring. That's what we bring. An actual someone standing in that chamber who isn't going to play the game, who isn't going to worry about what that councillor will think or what that councillor will think, who's actually there to stand up for the people. That's the point of this. That is the whole point of it. And if I am elected to Hartlepool Council, I can guarantee you I will be bringing that up every single chance I get. I've challenged them to take a 20% pay cut, and they will still be well off, much better off than most people in Hartlepool. I put that money into this town. Karen King, our councillor here, she spends her councillor's allowance on the town. That's you can never tell which exact detail is going to come up, but the philosophy that drives it, that's the point. If you vote for Britain, you are voting for an actual voice in the chamber, not game players, but a voice in the chamber. And when absurdities happen, when they're spending an X amount on this and there's no money for that, and this is useless, and that would actually help the town, you need someone in that chamber who's going to stand up and shout about it over and over again. Just if only to make the town aware of what's going on, to force the press to criticize these entrenched politicians who think they are there for life, who assume they deserve to be there, who take the vote for granted, and who are so entrenched in it that they don't even bother to try anymore. They need to be held to account. We are here for the people, the voice of the people. It's not a line, it's reality. That's why we call ourselves For Britain. You have passionate people here, people who are putting their own, we don't get good press coverage. It's not easy to do this, not easy to swim against the tide. So if people do it, they do it out of passion and conviction, and they will be the voice for the people in those chambers, not more bloody politicians.
Absolutely.
That's what we're offering.
Let me bring, this is your website, and I'd encourage people, of course, to go and have a look at it. Have a look at your manifesto, think of joining and being part of what you're building, Anne-Marie. But in this day and age of self-hatred, of certain colours mattering, other colours of people, actually, they should hate yourself. And so how does For Britain, I'm assuming you're coming at this from a patriotic, we love our country, we love our history, love our heritage. And that is something which actually is completely lacking in our politics and in the media, actually.
And it needs to come back. You know, the British people are still British, Peter. It's still there. That wonder, that amazing strength, that humor, that belief in themselves. It's still there. What it needs is reminding of that. It needs someone, it needs a party, and I believe we are that party, to give the British people their confidence back. What is happening, actually, not just to the British people, but people all over the Western world, I term it as abuse. It's abuse. I'll give you an example. This was from Australia, where a group of young white boys in a classroom were made to stand up, and I know this has happened in the UK as well, and I know it's happened in the United States. Young white boys made to stand up in class and told, essentially this is how it happens. They say, if you're white, stand up. If you're male, stand up. If your parents' first language is English, stand up. And these, you've got up with a little group of white boys standing up. And then they're told, by the way, you lot are privileged oppressors.
Yeah.
This is child abuse, but it's the abuse of children, but the same abuse is happening to all of us. It's happening on a national and international level, to particularly to, as well, actually, to white people. And the Black Lives Matter thing just entrenched all of that. We are all privileged oppressors because we're white. This is scandalous. It's abuse. It's abuse. And some of the rhetoric that is flying around in relation to white people, Peter, I'm not going to exaggerate this, and I'm not suggesting I won't predict what's coming. But some of the language used is pre-genocide propaganda. We are described as subhuman. We are described as controlling oppressors. This is relentless, and it is happening to children in schools who are white. This is scandalous, and it's part of the madness that people don't understand, and it's part of why across the Western world, particularly here in Britain, Germany is another, where people have, as you rightly say, been taught to hate themselves. Now, why would you want a population to hate itself? So that you can take everything it has and they won't put up a fight. That's why you want them to hate themselves. You can take their freedoms, you can take their country, you can take their money, you can take their identity, their history, their heritage, all of them, all of what makes us human. You can take it from them, and if they hate themselves sufficiently, they won't fight back. And actually, some of the cynicism and the despondency surrounding politics is related to that. It's why bother? Why bother? We're nothing. We're nothing. Why would we? We don't deserve any better than this anyway. That's the attitude, and that is the result of relentless decades of relentless anti-British, anti-white propaganda at every level of society. That's the result. Apathy. Well, I don't know what to do. But come on, stand up for yourself, fight back. They need their confidence back. They need leadership.